At the company board meeting, my own son stood up and said I should be removed. He called me outdated, useless. The room went silent until my lawyer slid a folder across the table. Inside was the truth. I wasn't just a shareholder. I was the majority owner. I'm Margaret, a mother, a widow, and for 30 years, I've poured everything I had into this family business. If you're listening, stay with me, and when you're done, subscribe and tell me where you're from. I want to know who else understands what it feels like to be betrayed by the people you raised. The meeting began like any other quarterly review. The mahogany table gleamed under the fluorescent lights. The board members shuffled papers, cleared their throats, sipped coffee out of branded mugs. My late husband's portrait hung on the wall, watching over us like a silent judge. Kevin, my only son, rose from his chair. He adjusted his tie, smoothed his jacket, and smiled a politician's smile. Ladies and gentlemen, he began. It's time to discuss the future. And with all due respect to my mother, we can't keep clinging to the past. She's old-fashioned, out of touch. It's time she stepped aside. The words hit me like a fist. I sat frozen, my hands folded in my lap. Kevin, I whispered, my voice barely audible. What are you saying? He didn't flinch. I'm saying you should step down. The company can't move forward if we're chained to outdated leadership. The other shareholders shifted uncomfortably. Some nodded. Others avoided my gaze. One even muttered, "He's not wrong." I felt the blood rush to my face. 30 years of my life poured into this business. Every late night, every missed holiday, every sacrifice I made, it all collapsed into that one word, useless. Kevin, I said more firmly, I built this company with your father. Every contract, every expansion, every partnership, we did this together. And now you want to erase me? He smirked. It's not personal. It's business. The audacity of it. My own son, dismissing me like I was some disposable employee. The chairman cleared his throat. Do we have documentation of majority interest before we move further? That was the moment. Robert Hughes, my attorney, stood. He had been silent until then, watching the scene unfold with sharp eyes. Without a word, he pulled a folder from his briefcase and slid it across the polished table. The room quieted. All eyes turned to him. Ladies and gentlemen, Robert said evenly, before we talk about leadership changes, perhaps we should review the shareholder agreement. Specifically, the updated registry filed 2 years ago. Kevin frowned. What are you doing? Robert opened the folder. Page after page of legal documents lay inside, stamped and notarized. According to these records, he continued, Mrs. Thompson is not a minority shareholder. She is, in fact, the majority owner. 51%. Every strategic decision, every vote, it all comes back to her. The silence that followed was deafening. I leaned back in my chair, my heart pounding, my breath steadying for the first time since Kevin opened his mouth. Kevin's face drained of color. That's impossible. Dad left me. Robert cut him off. Your father left controlling interest to his wife. Your mother. It's right here in black and white. I watched my son struggle, his confidence crumbling in front of the board. The smirk was gone, replaced by disbelief. The same son who just called me outdated and useless had no idea that I was the one holding the reins. I folded my hands on the table and looked him straight in the eye. Still think I should step aside? Kevin. The room waited. And for the first time in that meeting, my son had no words. The boardroom didn't stay silent for long. The moment Robert closed the folder, whispers erupted around the table. Some directors exchanged uneasy glances. Others tapped their pens nervously against their notepads. Kevin tried to recover. He cleared his throat and forced a smile. All right. Fine. Maybe she technically has majority ownership. But let's be realistic here. Running a company today isn't the same as 30 years ago. The industry has changed. Markets have changed. And no offense, Mom, you haven't kept up. He gestured to the others. She doesn't even know how to run a Zoom meeting without help. Do you really want our future tied to someone who can't handle email attachments? Laughter rippled down the table. Low, awkward, but real enough to sting. I tightened my grip on the armrests of my chair. You think this is about technology? This is about loyalty. About building something with integrity. The things your father and I lived for. Kevin shook his head. The world doesn't run on loyalty anymore. It runs on profit. It runs on innovation. And she can't deliver either. One of the younger directors leaned forward, emboldened by Kevin's words. He has a point. We need leaders who can adapt. Investors want growth, not nostalgia. Another chimed in. If she insists on staying, the stock could tank. People will lose confidence. I felt the walls closing in. Majority shareholder or not. They were pushing me into a corner. They wanted me humiliated, stripped of power in the very company I created. Robert started to speak, but Kevin cut him off. Look, we all respect what Mom's done, but she should enjoy her retirement. Travel. Spend time with grandkids. Let us take it from here. Retirement? I snapped. You think I'll just vanish because you've decided I'm inconvenient? Kevin leaned closer, lowering his voice but making sure everyone could hear. It's not about convenience. It's about survival. And if you love this company, you'll do what's best for it and step down. The word stung deeper than I expected. Survival. He spoke as if I were the threat, not the foundation. Robert slid another document across the table, but Kevin slammed his hand down, blocking it. No more paperwork. Hughes. Everyone in this room knows the truth. She's too old to keep up. We can either evolve or sink. The directors murmured again, this time louder. I saw their heads nodding, their pens scribbling notes. My majority stake meant little if the entire board was against me. Kevin leaned back, confidence creeping back into his smile. It's simple. Mom, you can hold the title, but titles don't matter if nobody listens. You'll be CEO in name only. A figurehead. We'll run the company without you. The humiliation was sharper than a knife. My son hadn't just called me useless, he convinced others to treat me that way. I steadied my voice, refusing to let it shake. You think you've already won, Kevin, but you've forgotten one thing. His smirk faltered. And what's that? I met his gaze, unwavering. Control isn't about who laughs the loudest in a meeting. It's about who signs the checks. The room went silent again. I gathered my papers, and walked out without waiting for the meeting to end. My heels clicked against the polished floor, each step echoing my resolve. Behind me, Kevin's voice rose, sharp and frustrated, but I didn't turn back. They wanted to corner me. Instead, they'd handed me the perfect chance to show them who really held the power. And soon, they were going to learn just how dangerous it was to underestimate me. The next morning, I walked into the office like I always had. Same front doors, same marble lobby, same receptionist who greeted me with forced politeness. But something was different. I could feel it before I even stepped into the elevator. When I reached my office on the top floor, my keycard flashed red. Denied. I swiped it again. Red. Again. Red. A young security guard approached, shifting nervously. Mrs. Thompson, your access has been restricted. Restricted? I repeated. This is my company. He avoided my eyes. Orders from upstairs. I didn't need to ask who upstairs was. Turned, heels clicking, and marched straight into the finance department. My assistant, Sarah, looked up from her desk, startled. Mrs. Thompson, you're not supposed to be here. Not supposed to? I snapped. I'm the majority shareholder. I can go wherever I damn well please. She bit her lip, then slid a paper across her desk. Your personal accounts were flagged this morning. The company cards all frozen. The system says it was approved by your son. My chest tightened. He doesn't have that authority. Maybe not legally, she whispered. But he has the board on his side. And they've moved fast. I grabbed the paper, scanning the lines. My name erased. Kevin's signature stamped across approvals that weren't his to make. He wasn't just trying to push me out of the boardroom. He was cutting me off completely. I stormed into the conference wing, pushing open the glass doors without knocking. Kevin sat at the head of the table, surrounded by directors. He looked up, all calm confidence, as if he'd been expecting me. "Mom," he said smoothly, "this isn't the time. You froze my accounts." I shot back. "You changed approvals without my consent." He leaned back, steepling his fingers. "We had to. Investors were nervous. They think you're unstable. I had to show them I could keep things under control." "By stealing from your own mother?" "It's not stealing. It's strategy." His smile was smug. "Practiced. You can still keep the title, if that makes you feel better. But the power is mine now." The directors murmured in agreement. One even said, "It's for the best." I felt the burn of humiliation rising again, sharper than ever. They were all in on it, my own son, the people I had trusted for years, united to strip me of everything. I leaned over the table, hands pressed flat against the polished wood. "You think locking me out of accounts and doors means you've won? Kevin, you're playing checkers in a game of chess." His smirk widened. "Then prove it." The room chuckled. They thought it was over. They thought I was finished. But what Kevin didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I had more than a folder on my side. I had something buried deep in the company's foundation. Something his father and I put in place long before Kevin learned how to tie a tie. And when I used it, every smug face around that table would crack. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at my kitchen table with a pot of coffee, the folder Robert had given me spread wide open in front of me. For hours I read through every line of contracts, shareholder agreements, amendments, and old meeting minutes. Kevin thought freezing my cards and locking me out of the office was checkmate. But he had forgotten one thing. His father never trusted easy. Buried inside a thick packet labeled Amendment 14B was a clause I hadn't noticed before. It was signed, notarized, and filed years ago. My husband's handwriting filled the margins, just like it had on the marriage fund contract. The clause was simple, but devastating. If the majority shareholder is deemed unable to exercise authority due to obstruction by minority shareholders or board members, said shareholder may activate a trusteeship clause. The trustee, appointed by the majority, will temporarily assume executive control with full legal protection. I stared at those words, my hands trembling, a slow smile spreading across my face. Kevin thought he could trap me, but the truth was, his father had left me a weapon sharp enough to cut the board in half. At dawn, I called Robert. His voice was calm as ever, but I could hear the satisfaction underneath. "I was wondering when you'd find it." "You knew?" I asked. "Of course," he said. "I wanted you to see it for yourself. This clause gives you more than ownership, Margaret. It gives you leverage. The board tried to sideline you? Perfect. Now you get to appoint someone they can't challenge." I took a deep breath. "And if I make you trustee?" He chuckled. "Then I run the company on your behalf. Every frozen account, every unauthorized decision they're reversed. Legally. Immediately." By the time I walked into the boardroom later that morning, my exhaustion was hidden beneath a fresh suit, my hair pulled tight, my heels clicking like gunshots on the polished floor. Kevin was already there, laughing with two directors. He looked up, smug. "Mom, you shouldn't be here." I dropped the folder on the table. "Actually, I should. And I'm here to introduce you to the new trustee of Thompson Industries." Robert stepped in behind me, crisp suit, leather briefcase in hand. His presence alone shifted the room. Conversations died. Chairs squeaked as directors straightened. Kevin's smile faltered. "Trustee? What trustee?" Robert laid the amendment flat in the center of the table. his finger tapping the signature line. Appointed by the majority shareholder. Effective immediately. Kevin scanned the page. His face draining of color as the realization hit. This can't be real. Oh, it's real. Robert said smoothly. Every bank, every vendor, every investor will be notified before the end of the day. Control of all decisions now runs through me. On behalf of your mother. The directors murmured in shock. One whispered, "We didn't know about this." Another muttered, "It changes everything." Kevin slammed his fist on the table. "You can't do this. I'm her son." I leaned in, my voice sharp and cold. "And that's the problem. Kevin, you forgot I'm not just your mother. I'm the majority owner. And unlike you, I know how to protect what's mine." The room went silent. Every eye was on me. For the first time in weeks, I felt the power shift back where it belonged. Kevin had pushed me into a corner. Now he was the one trapped inside it. Kevin didn't take long to strike back. By the end of the week, Robert called me into his office. His expression was sharper than usual. His voice low. "Your son's panicking," he said. "I've been monitoring the accounts. He and 2 directors tried to move company funds into a shell corporation last night." My stomach dropped. "Move them? How much?" Robert slid a file across the desk. $8 million. They set up a dummy entity overseas. Thought no one would notice. But they left a trail a mile wide. I clenched my fists. He's stealing from his own mother. From his father's company. Robert nodded. That's exactly what it is. Theft. And it's not just illegal, it's stupid. Because we have the paper trail. I leaned forward. So what do we do? Robert's eyes glinted. We let him dig the hole a little deeper. Then we pull the ground out from under him. The next morning, I walked into the office as if nothing had happened. Kevin was already there. His tie loose, his eyes darting nervously. When he saw me, he forced a smile. "Mom," he said smoothly, "maybe we got off on the wrong foot. We should work together. Let me handle the operations, and you can enjoy the benefits. Doesn't that sound easier?" I narrowed my eyes. Enjoy the benefits while you funnel money into a fake company overseas? His smile froze. The directors sitting nearby went pale. "What are you talking about?" he stammered. Robert stepped forward, dropping a stack of documents on the table. "We're talking about this. Wire transfers, incorporation papers, false signatures, all tied to your name. Kevin." The room erupted in murmurs. One director muttered, "He dragged us into this." Another hissed, "If this gets out, we're finished." Kevin's face flushed red. He stood, slamming his hands on the table. "You set me up." I rose to my feet, meeting his glare without flinching. "No, Kevin. You set yourself up. You thought you could strip me of power, humiliate me, and steal what your father built. You thought I wouldn't fight back." He turned to the others. "Desperate. Don't listen to her. We can fix this. We just need." But no one backed him. The director's eyes were already shifting toward me. Toward the majority owner with the ironclad trustee at her side. Robert's voice cut through the noise. "The documents are already filed with the bank and the SEC. The funds are frozen. Any further attempt to move assets will trigger a federal investigation." The word federal landed like a bomb. The directors recoiled, whispering among themselves, fear spreading like wildfire. Kevin looked at me, his face twisted in disbelief. "You'd ruin me? Your own son?" I stared at him, my voice low and sharp. "You ruined yourself the moment you decided I was disposable." The silence that followed was heavy. Kevin sank back into his chair, sweat glistening at his temples. For the first time, he looked small. And for the first time, the board looked at me not as a relic, but as the only person who could save them from the disaster my son had unleashed. I thought the boardroom showdown would shake Kevin into silence. Instead, it only escalated. He started working the phones late at night, whispering into them like a man desperate to plug holes in a sinking ship. But what he didn't realize was that Robert had already set the wheels in motion. 2 days later, the front desk buzzed me on the intercom. "Mrs. Thompson, there are men here to see you. Federal agents." I straightened in my chair. "Send them up." The elevator doors slid open, and 2 agents stepped out in dark suits. Their badges gleamed under the fluorescent lights. The board members who happened to be lingering nearby scattered instantly, their whispers echoing down the hall. "Mrs. Thompson?" one of the agents asked. "Yes," I said, calm as stone. He nodded. "We're investigating suspicious wire transfers made from Thompson Industries accounts. We need to speak with you, your son, and several board members." Now, I didn't have to say a word. Kevin walked in at that exact moment, his face draining of color the second he saw the agents. "What's going on?" he demanded. Robert stepped up, cool as ice. "What's going on is that the $8 million you tried to move overseas was flagged. The FBI doesn't take kindly to financial fraud." The agent opened his folder, pulling out copies of the same documents Robert had shown the board. "We'll need statements. And depending on what we hear, there may be charges." Kevin's voice cracked. "Charges? Against who?" The agent's eyes were flat. "Against anyone responsible." The room went dead silent. Directors shifted uncomfortably in their chairs. Some looked pale enough to faint. I folded my hands on the table and leaned back. "You wanted me out because I was old-fashioned, Kevin. But I'll tell you what's old-fashioned crime. Fraud. Thinking you could get away with it." His jaw clenched. "Mom, stop talking." I raised an eyebrow. "Why? Afraid the truth makes you look weak?" The agents began asking questions. Rapid fire. Names. Dates. Who approved what? Kevin stumbled through his answers, contradicting himself, sweating so hard the papers in his hand curled at the edges. When the questioning ended, the lead agent closed his folder. "We'll be in touch. But know this, if another cent moves without approval, we'll be back with warrants." The moment they left, the boardroom erupted. "You nearly destroyed us." One director shouted at Kevin. "We're finished if the media picks this up." Another said, panic in his voice. Kevin slammed his fist on the table. "Shut up, all of you." But no one listened. Their fear was louder than his anger. Robert leaned toward me, his voice low but steady. "It won't be long before this leaks. Reporters love a story about greed and betrayal. And when it does, Kevin won't just be fighting you. He'll be fighting the entire city." I allowed myself the faintest smile. Good. Let him see what it feels like to be humiliated in public. Because I remembered every laugh, every sneer, every time he called me outdated and useless. And I wasn't done yet. Not until the whole world saw him for what he really was. It didn't take long. By the next morning, my phone buzzed nonstop. Texts, missed calls, emails piling up faster than I could read them. And then I saw it. Front page of the Wall Street Journal. Son of family business mogul under federal investigation for fraud. Kevin's face stared back at me from the photo, pale and tight-lipped as he left the boardroom yesterday. My name was there too. But not as the villain, no. The article called me the longtime matriarch and majority shareholder. The headline painted me as the one trying to hold the company together, while my son gambled with its future. By noon, the local news trucks were parked outside the office. Reporters shouted questions the second anyone walked in or out. "Mrs. Thompson, did you know about your son's transfers? Kevin, are you facing indictment? Is Thompson Industries collapsing under family drama?" I stood tall in front of the cameras, giving nothing away. Kevin, on the other hand, ducked his head and pushed through the crowd, muttering no comment as flashes exploded around him. Inside, the board was in chaos. Directors waved copies of the paper, their voices sharp and panicked. "This is destroying investor confidence. Our phones are blowing up with calls. Shareholders want answers. If this doesn't stop, We'll lose every major account we have. Kevin slammed his hands on the table. It's not my fault. This is my mother's doing. She's feeding the press. Setting me up. All eyes turned to me. I leaned back in my chair. Calm as ever. Funny. I didn't need to feed them anything. You did the work yourself. The room fell silent. Even the directors knew it was true. That afternoon, social media exploded. Twitter threads dissected every detail of the fraud. TikToks mocked Kevin with dramatic reenactments of him being scolded by the FBI. On Instagram, memes spread like wildfire. Kevin's face photoshopped onto sinking ships, collapsing buildings, and headlines like outdated mom outsmarts son. By evening, Netflix had even called Robert. If this story keeps unfolding, the producer said, we want the documentary rights. Kevin locked himself in his office, blinds drawn, refusing to speak to anyone. Emily, his wife, stormed out of the building in tears after a journalist asked if she had benefited from the stolen funds. And me? I walked through the lobby with my head high. Reporters shouting my name. Cameras flashing like fireworks. Mrs. Thompson, how do you feel about your son's downfall? I stopped, turned toward the cameras, and gave them the faintest smile. I feel like the truth always wins. That's all you need to know. The clip ran on every evening news broadcast. Commentators praised me as sharp, composed, unshakable. Investors began calling not to complain, but to reassure. We're with you, Mrs. Thompson. One said, we trust your leadership. And while Kevin hid, I was the one who looked like the future of Thompson Industries. He had wanted me invisible. Now the entire country could see me. The shareholder meeting was packed. Rows of leather chairs filled the conference hall. Investors murmuring nervously as camera crews hovered near the doors. Everyone wanted to see if Thompson Industries would survive or collapse under Kevin's scandal. I sat at the front table with Robert beside me, my folder of documents neatly stacked. Kevin paced like a caged animal, tie loose, hair damp with sweat. He kept shooting me looks, the kind a cornered wolf gives before it lunges. The chairman called the meeting to order. The agenda today, he said, his voice tight, is to determine control of Thompson Industries moving forward. Kevin sprang to his feet before the man even finished. This is insane. My mother is dragging us down with her drama. I'm the one with vision. I'm the one who can lead us into the future. Boos rumbled through the room. Some investors actually laughed. One man in the second row stood up, waving a copy of the Wall Street Journal. Vision? You nearly went to prison this week. Murmurs swelled. Cameras flashed. Kevin's face went crimson. I rose slowly, letting the noise settle. My voice was steady, clear. For 30 years, my husband and I built this company from the ground up, brick by brick, contract by contract. I stood beside him every step of the way. And when he died, I didn't abandon it. I carried it forward. Alone. I let that sink in before continuing. This company isn't a playground for greed. It isn't a shell for fraud. It's a legacy. And legacies don't belong in the hands of children who treat them like toys. The room erupted in applause. The chairman cleared his throat. We'll proceed to a vote. All in favor of reaffirming Mrs. Thompson as controlling shareholder and executive authority. Raise your hands. One by one. Hands shot up. Investor after investor. Director after director. Even those who had once whispered against me raised their arms, desperate to save their fortunes. The chairman nodded. And all in favor of Mr. Kevin Thompson? Kevin looked around wildly as only two hesitant hands lifted. Even they lowered when the cameras zoomed in. The result was undeniable. Overwhelming. Final. The chairman banged his gavel. The board recognizes Mrs. Margaret Thompson as the sole authority of Thompson Industries. Effective immediately, Kevin Thompson is removed from all leadership positions. The room thundered with applause again. Cameras flashed. Reporters scribbled furiously. Kevin stood frozen, his mouth open, his face pale. "You can't do this to me," he croaked. "I'm your son." I turned toward him, my expression cold. "And I'm your mother. You should have remembered that before you tried to destroy me." Security stepped forward. The board didn't have to say a word. They escorted Kevin out as the investors cheered. For the first time, I wasn't the one humiliated in front of a crowd. He was. And the whole world got to watch. Kevin's fall was faster than even I expected. The day after the vote, reporters camped outside his house. They followed him to the grocery store, to the gym, even when he tried sneaking out through the back alley. Every headline was the same. Disgraced heir removed from Thompson Industries. Fraud investigation continues against Kevin Thompson. From golden boy to cautionary tale. I didn't need to feed the story, he fed it himself. Every time a camera caught him snapping at reporters, every time he shoved past someone shouting questions, the media painted him darker. At home, Emily finally broke. Paparazzi had snapped her in tears outside a cafe, muttering, "I can't do this anymore," into her phone. By the end of the week, she packed her bags and left their mansion, her lawyer filing for separation the next morning. Even his friends disappeared. The golf buddies, the country club crowd, the people who once fawned over his name, all gone. They stopped answering his calls, too afraid of being tied to the scandal. I saw him once, outside the courthouse. He looked thinner, hunched. His suit wrinkled like he'd slept in it. Reporters swarmed, shouting questions. "Kevin, are you cooperating with the investigation? Kevin, did you embezzle more than $8 million? Kevin, did your mother outsmart you?" That last one made him snap. He shoved the camera aside, his voice cracking. "She didn't outsmart me. This is all lies." But the footage hit the evening news, and the caption beneath his red, furious face read, "Kevin Thompson meltdown." Back at the office, the shift was obvious. Employees who once flinched in my presence now greeted me with respect. Investors who had doubted me sent flowers and letters, thanking me for protecting their trust. And Kevin? He was the punchline. Online, late-night hosts turned him into a running joke. Memes mocked his downfall. Hashtags like #OutdatedMomWins and #KevinCrash trended for days. The empire he thought he would inherit had spat him out. One night, as I left the office, I saw him across the street. Alone. No cameras. No entourage. No wife at his side. Just him. Staring at the building he tried to steal from me. Our eyes met for a moment. He opened his mouth. Maybe to beg. Maybe to curse me, but I didn't give him the chance. I stepped into my car, closed the door, and let the driver pull away. For once, he was the one left in the shadows. The indictment came on a gray Tuesday morning. Federal prosecutors announced it live on television. Kevin Thompson, charged with fraud, wire transfers in violation of federal law, and conspiracy with board members. The news cycle exploded. Every network ran the footage of him being led into the courthouse, hands cuffed in front of him, jacket wrinkled, eyes wild. The golden boy of Thompson Industries reduced to a headline. From heir to handcuffs. I sat in my office, watching it play out on the flat screen mounted to the wall. Employees gathered in the hallway, whispering, pointing, some shaking their heads, some smirking. Robert stepped in quietly. "It's done," he said. "The company is safe. The investors are behind you. And Kevin," he let the sentence trail off. I turned from the television, my face calm. Kevin made his choice. Later that afternoon, I walked into the boardroom for the first time since his removal. The room that had once echoed with his smug voice now felt still, respectful. The directors rose when I entered. "Mrs. Thompson," the chairman said, "you've saved us all. The company stands because of you." I nodded once. "Good. Then let's get back to work." As I gathered my papers, the doors swung open. Kevin was there, disheveled, his tie crooked, 2 FBI agents at his back. He stared at me, eyes full of fury and disbelief. This isn't over. He spat. You can't just erase me. I walked toward him, heels clicking against the polished floor, stopping just inches away. I looked him dead in the eye, my voice steady and cold. You called me outdated, useless. But remember this, Kevin, while you were busy playing games, I was holding the winning hand. Always. The agents pulled him away before he could answer. His voice echoed down the hall, angry and broken, until it disappeared completely. I turned back to the board, gathered my folder, and left the room without another word. For the first time in months, the air was clear. And for the first time in years, I walked out of that building not as someone's widow, not as someone's mother, but as the woman who owned it all.